up, nerds? Welcome to the Nerdy Narrative. My name is Leslie Smith, and today on the channel, I'm going to be doing my March monthly wrap-up. Just a quick recap of everything that I read during the month of March, what I thought about it, what I recommended. I'll tell you at the end what my favorite book was of the month, and my favorite audiobook narrator, if there was one. Starting with one of my series rereads. I am in the midst, almost done actually, of a Dresden Files reread. So in March, I read the short story Aftermath that came out of the Side Jobs short story collection. I followed that with a reread of Ghost Story by Jim Butcher. To me, Ghost Story is the most unique novel in the Dresden Files series, or at least currently out in the 17 that have been published. Butcher takes a completely different approach to the narrative style of this one, and a lot of fans don't like it that much as a result. To me, it's extremely important. There are so many critical moments in this book that have an impact later in the series, or at least that's my opinion. After I finished Ghost Story, which remained a 5-star read for me, I then went to the Briefcases collection and read Bombshells, which is one of the short stories I had not read previously. I really enjoyed it. It's told from Molly's perspective, and it was also narrated by Julia Whalen, which is one of my favorite narrators. So it was a bit odd to have a Dresden Files story that was not narrated by James Marsters, but also it was Julia Whalen, so I was perfectly okay with that. The other series that I have been rereading for a while now is the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. I'm into the later novels now that have been written by Brandon Sanderson. There's only one book I have left, and this series reread will be finished. Towers of Midnight barely eked out a 4-star read for me during this reread. And the reason why it's on the lower side of 4-star rather than higher or possibly a 5-star is a reason that a lot of the books in this series didn't rank as high. Pacing and way too much time spent repeating things or descriptions. I have another series reread that was at the bottom of the pile, Dreams of Dust by Lily Ann Crow. This is the first book in the Will of the Wayfinder series. I first read this book in 2022. It was a 5-star read for me, loved it. I reread it during the month of March because I'm about to start, in fact, at time of filming, I have already started the second book in this series, and I should be receiving in my inbox the arc for book 3. I'm just one of those weirdos that anytime a new book comes out in the series, I like to reread the entire series so everything is fresh, I remember everything. I have a lot of fun reminding myself of my conspiracy theories, my predictions. Sometimes those change on a reread because I always notice things a second or third time through that I missed the first few times that I read the book. So I really love to reread. Y'all know this. I mean, this is the 3rd series this month that I'm rereading. So happy to say that even on a reread, this book is still a 5-star read for me. I will have my written review linked in the description box below if you want to check that out. In fact, all of these books are going to be linked in the description below. Some of the books have dedicated non-spoiler review videos. Those are going to be there as well. All of that and more down in the description box below. And that is for sure the last of my rereads. Moving on, one of my most anticipated reads for the year happened this month. The final book in the Indian Lake trilogy was published in March, The Angel of Indian Lake by Stephen Graham Jones. I had very high expectations for The Angel of Indian Lake, and this one barely made it to a 3-star read for me. If you're currently making your way through this series, I would highly recommend the audiobook for this one in particular if you're someone who likes to listen to audiobooks. The reason why I say that, the narrative style for this one is mostly from Jade. You're in her head, you're listening to her inner thoughts, her inner monologue. I don't think that translates well when you're just reading it. I believe the audiobook might give you a completely different experience. I haven't had a chance to listen to it on audio yet, but I plan to see if that changes my opinion. Yeah, this was a book that I did not enjoy the journey, but the ending was perfection. Stephen Graham Jones could not have come up with a better ending for this book, this trilogy, than what he put in here. It was absolutely beautiful. I can't stand being so vague about it, but there's no way I can expound on that further without spoiling this book and this series. Would I still recommend the trilogy based off this book alone? Yes. I'm just one of those readers that doesn't like a tell, don't show type of plot. I want to see the action take place. But again, I usually have a different perspective on that when I listen to it on audio. So that's still in the cards for me to go back. I will absolutely come back and amend everything I've said, my written review, my rating, all of that if it's warranted once I get a chance to listen to that audiobook. I actually started the month off reading The Angel of Indian Lake, and I fell into this murder mystery thriller binge, which continued with The Killer's Daughter by Kate Wiley. Any mention on the cover or the book description about a serial killer, that is going to get me every time. That's what drew me in about this one. The main character is a homicide detective whose father is the most notorious serial killer in America. When he was captured, he had 76 murders tied to him at that time. The whole dynamic between the father and daughter, that's just one of the plot lines of this book. We do get to follow along with the main character, Margot, as she is investigating a couple of different cases that she's assigned. But in the midst of that, you have chapters that are kind of interspersed here and there that would outline how he selected his victim, how long he would watch them before he would finally make his move. And those chapters were absolutely chilling. The Killer's Daughter was an easy 4-star read for me. The next thriller that I read took a little step back from being so dark. It was more on the cozy side of things. I read Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Q. Santanto, and I loved this book. I have to be honest, when I read the first chapter, I thought, I don't think this one's going to be for me. I picked it up because it was the book pick for the Literally Dead book club that's hosted by Kayla from Books and Lala. So it wasn't one I actually chose for myself. And I read that first chapter and I thought, uh-oh, this is just a big character introduction for the main character. In a thriller, a murder mystery, I want a taste test of what I can expect in that first chapter. I want to get hooked. I wasn't hooked. Now, chapter 2 did a much better job, and before I knew it, I was in love with all these characters, and they're all murder suspects. Like, I mean, my gosh, it was a bit of a mess because I'm going, what if these people is the killer? How am I going to handle this? And oh my goodness, it was so cute. Absolutely loved it. Another easy 4-star read for me. I did do a more in-depth, non-spoiler video review, which of course is down in the description below and in the cards above if you want to give that a watch. My next thriller, Murder Road by Simone St. James, another highly anticipated read for me because I read and loved the book of Cold Cases by this author a couple of years ago, and it put them on my radar. So as soon as I saw a new title being published, I wanted to read it. I'm so glad that I did not purchase this book. I got it from my library. This one was 2 stars for me. I did not like any of the characters. The premise was boring. It went from boring to bad, and I just thought, there's no way it could get any worse. Something's going to happen. This author, I know they have it in them to turn this around and do something amazing. I mean, there was a supernatural aspect. There's a lot you can do there. And unfortunately, the only way that supernatural aspect was used was as a band-aid to bridge plot gaps. I cannot recommend this book to anyone. Now, just because I didn't like it and I didn't recommend it, if this book sounded interesting to you, if you read that premise and you thought, this sounds really good, go ahead and try it. Don't let me put you off from trying it. I just would say, get it from your library. Don't spend good money on it until you read it and you're like, ooh, this is so good that I want to reread it. That's what I do. I don't buy books unless I know that I'm going to reread them. So I've brought the energy down to the 2-star. Let's go ahead and talk about the 1 DNF that I had this month. Sadly, it was the book that I accepted as a review request from the author, Galaxy of Thorns, Rise of the Empress. This one, I am not the kind of reader for this type of narrative style. The same reason why I did not enjoy The Angel of Indian Lake is the same reason that I was put off by this one. The tell, don't show writing style is an immediate barrier preventing me from being able to immerse myself into the story. When I sit down to read a book, I want to follow the characters on their adventures, their actions. And in Galaxy of Thorns, the 20% or so that I read, there was almost no dialogue. It was simply you're being told this character did this and then they did this and then they did this. There were a bunch of gaps in time. It just felt very rushed, you know, just too condensed and underdeveloped. There was a lot of potential there for a great story, but in that style, especially when there's no audiobook available for me to pair with it, help immerse me in the story, I couldn't do it. And so unfortunately, this one was a DNF for me. Funny story about this next one. It is an ARC that I received. I wrote a review, I filmed a video, and then the publisher, Angry Robot Books, reached out to me to see if I would be interested in being part of a book tour for this novel. I said, absolutely, I would love to, because I'd already filmed the review and had it edited, ready to go, and then I could just move it around and publish it on whatever day that I got assigned. And in the notes for signing up for the book tour, they put a phonetic pronunciation for the title, and of course my southern ass pronounced that title wrong the entire time during that video, and I thought, oh my lord, I hope the author is not offended. Now the video is going to go out after this one, so I can tell y'all this is called the LAST PHI Hunter. The video review that's coming out, I call it PHI. I am so sorry, it is PHI. This is a Thai folklore inspired dark fantasy. I hope this becomes a series. There's a lot of things that the author did with this book that I think will make it appealing to a wide variety of readers. I loved the writing style. I loved the imagery. It is so immersive. The world building is just phenomenal. Not only the physical world, but the spiritual world. Something I have fun doing whenever I read a new book is after I finish the first chapter, I write down my initial impression of that chapter and I predict what my star rating is going to be. This one, I put down 3 stars and it ended up becoming a 4-star read. So The LAST PHI Hunter ended up being a really fun journey. Really enjoyed Saloni Goldenberg's writing, and I will absolutely be reading more by that author. We're going to end on a high note. The one 5-star read that I had this month that was a new book, not one of my rereads, Butcher and Blackbird by Brynn Weaver. This was also my patron pick of the month. My patron Sharon not only picked this book for me, well, she sort of let me pick it. She had gifted me a copy of this book, and when I spun my wheel of names to see which patron got to pick something for me to read, it landed on her, and I kind of edged her to it. I was like, hey Sharon, I'm really curious about Butcher and Blackbird. Can I make that your patron pick? And she said, go ahead. Y'all, I don't know what I thought. Actually, I do know what I thought. I thought, I'm going to be rolling my eyes and chuckling and scoffing at this book the entire time. Straight away, the first few lines of chapter 1 had me laughing. And I thought, if nothing else, I'm going to have a good time laughing at this book. The general premise of this book is it's a dark romance comedy about 2 serial killers falling in love. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And now I did laugh. There are things that happen in this book that I will never, ever, ever forget. I do have a full non-spoiler video review. I think that went up before this one's going to go up. So if it has, I'll have it linked in the cards and of course in the description below. It was such a good book. It was such a surprising book. I cannot believe I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. Before I was finished, I pre-ordered the second book in the series. I was on NetGalley putting it on my wish list. NetGalley approves me for the second book in the series. Everything's getting dropped for Leather and Lark. And so that concludes all of the things that I read during the month of March. It was a fantastic reading month. I've already got a great one lined up for April. You'll have to let me know down in the comments below what your favorite book you read in March was. Mine Butcher and Blackbird, hands down. And favorite audiobook narrator, I have to go with Eunice Wong, who narrated Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. She did an amazing job, absolutely amazing. In fact, audiobook is the way to go for that one. I would definitely say skip the physical read for that one, go strictly audio. You're gonna have a great time. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully I've read something this month that you haven't read that sounds interesting to you to put on your TBR. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next one.